Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, April 3rd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Akron game in 150 days, the game against Michigan in 241 days. The Ohio State football team will be back on the practice field today inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center for practice number 10 out of 15 for the spring. Practice number 15, of course, the spring game coming up next Saturday, April 13th at noon. Game televised on Fox. I feel like I need to just keep saying that until I believe it. National TV, spring game. What a time to be alive. Tickets available at ohiostatebuckeyes.com. If you want to believe in the long-term forecast, it's looking pretty decent right now. We'll see whether that holds, but it looks like no snow in the forecast. Should be pretty warm, so it should be a nice day out at Ohio Stadium. So that spring game will be the end of spring football with 6 practices still to go before the end of that spring game. I wanted to take a look at some of the unanswered questions right now with the Ohio State football team, things that we're hoping to learn more about over the next 6 practices, including that spring game. I'm going to bring in Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com to do that. Tony, we have to start with the quarterbacks. Everyone wants to know about the quarterbacks. Tony, we got to start with the quarterbacks. It feels like we have more information than we did at the start of the spring. I don't know if I've changed my opinion on who's most likely to be the starting quarterback this fall, but that definitely feels like that is the biggest unanswered question right now about this year's Ohio State team.
Yeah, if we had gone into, and we did frankly talk about this before spring, like not expecting anybody to be named the leader or anything like that. And if you had said, well, nobody's going to be named the leader by practice 9 or 10, it's like, well, that's not going to be a surprise. So we have learned a lot more, but none of that has changed what we thought we would see or would have seen last month. So yeah, still rolling through. And, really, I think the most positive thing is when we saw them on Saturday, they both looked pretty good in terms of Will Howard and Devin Brown. Lincoln Keenel started the scrimmage portion with the 2 best throws of the day, and then Devin Brown eventually caught him. But just the fact that they both looked like they could do this, and, one practice, one glimpse, there's still 30 more practices to go. But what we didn't see was this guy just can't do it. This guy can. And so the weighting is still pretty even. So I think, we'll see more, see how it goes. I'm with you. My opinion of what is going to be the case at the end of spring is the same as what I thought it would be at this point going into spring, which is no leader. Still everything is an open competition. No reason to put one person ahead of the other. And now as well as they've played, as even as things have been, I think that is also healthy because the coaches can say one thing like, oh, it's all completely open. But the players know like, oh, no, Will Howard has been fantastic, much more better than Devin Brown, or Devin Brown has been lights out better than Will Howard. From what we've seen, what we've heard, like that, it seems pretty even. So the players would believe, the quarterbacks themselves would believe that it's even. And then Lincoln Keenel has been doing well from what we've seen. So he's still got this opportunity to continue to compete as well. There's no reason for him to just pack up and just watch.
Yeah, and I think that's broadly those 3 guys. I would have probably expected those 3 guys to be still in an open competition leaving the spring. Keenhol's obviously someone who we've heard so many good things about from the coaching staff, even during that first year where he enrolled late and didn't enroll late, didn't enroll early. How about that? He enrolled on time, but was very clearly physically not quite ready to play at the Big Ten level. And so now going into the second year, you figured, okay, he's probably going to take another step and be a part of that competition. And whether or not he wins the job, he's a legitimate part of that competition at this point of the spring. And it seems like that's where he is. What's intriguing to me is a name that we were not talking about really at all until January, Julian Sayin, who enrolled at Alabama for about 15 minutes and then transferred to Ohio State. I'm not expecting him to win the starting job. I want to be clear on that. I don't think he's going to win the starting job. I think the biggest surprise to me of the spring is that Julian Sayin is maybe a little bit more of this conversation at this point in the spring than I would have thought.
Yeah, you're hearing his name more than you normally would hear of a freshman in spring, which is it's one of those, it's an indicator of the future more than an indicator of the present, I think is a good way to put it. Like, this is something you take note and you let that seed grow, but don't expect a tree this year. And I think it's a good sign for him for the future that you're seeing somebody who is able to process. And on Saturday, he had some nice passes. He operates well, flings the ball, just slings it and throws it quickly. All great things that you want to see, moving the ball downfield, but still just a true freshman. So I think just be happy for Buckeye fans. Just be happy that you're hearing his name. And one of the other reasons you're hearing his name is because he's a true freshman. You're like, wow. It's not like, wow, he's better than everybody else. It's, wow, he's a true freshman and he's doing this. So keep that in mind. It's the true freshman aspect that is the more impressive thing than necessarily just his level of play.
All right, so there it is. We've handled the first question that every fan probably wants to know about. Now let's talk about the first thing most coaching staffs are going to want to talk about, and that is the offensive line. And the line this time last year was, all the red sirens were going off, and they were still looking in the portal because there was like open concern bordering on panic from the coaching staff this time last year. Very much not the case this year. It feels like there's a lot higher level of comfort with the offensive line. They don't know who the best five is, Tony, but it feels like they at least know whoever the best five is, it's going to be a pretty good best five. And now it's just a matter of, does one of the centers kick over to guard? Does one of the tackles kick inside to guard? Do they, who's playing right? Who's starting at center? Who's playing right tackle? It feels like we're maybe inching a little closer to having better answers on all of that stuff. But they're all still, that the whole right side of that offensive line is still, to one degree or another, a little bit of an open question.
Yeah, it is. And in choosing and finding that best five this year, you've got a pool of like 8, maybe. And last year at this time, choosing the best five, you had a pool of about 3. So mathematically, things are much better this year. Your options are much greater. The talent is better. The experience is better because everybody that was here last year is back this year. They're all better. And I know we've talked about Josh Fryer moving to guard and he's gotten some reps there, but he's the vast majority of his time is spent at right tackle. I don't think you can move Fryer without bringing somebody else in because I don't know that there's somebody else right now that can play tackle as well as Fryer. And I think they can find some sort of a combination or an option that will play guard well enough. And we still have not seen the movement of Carson Hinsman or Seth McLaughlin to guard. And that may happen next week as they try to find more looks and get more stuff on tape and more scenarios played out for all of these guys. But I don't see Fryer going anywhere unless it would take the right kind of tackle out in the portal. And I don't know that how many of them are out there that are going to be better than Josh Fryer. And not just better than Josh Fryer, but able to fit into the system, fit into the room, fit into the culture, and not make bad waves, because doing that on the offensive line, you have to be very, very careful about who you bring in. And Seth McLaughlin fit in, Jonah Jackson fit in and made things better. So I think right now, just that right guard position is the biggest question, and they're rolling some guys in there. And I wonder if they even need to know or want to know who that guy is going to be this spring, or is it more of just, we just want to see as much as we can see from as many different people as we can see.
I think they're probably at a level of comfort where, sure, if you know who it is, great. But as long as they're at a level of comfort where they think someone here can do this, they're probably going to be comfortable with that. And it feels like that's where they are. I know that we've talked about them going into the portal and trying to pull someone else out. It feels like the bar for the caliber of player you would have to pull out of there to represent a significant upgrade this year is just so much higher than it was this time last year. And that's, that's bad news in that help is not necessarily, to paraphrase a High Street legend, help is not necessarily on the way, but it's good news in that you're feeling much more comfortable about where things are overall there. And, by the end of last year, and we're going to set the Cotton Bowl aside, by the end of last year, that offensive line was pretty good. Josh Fryer played really well last year towards the end of the year. Josh Simmons made big leaps last year. And, now you've got Luke Montgomery, who they like a lot. They've got Taker Shabola, who you like a lot. You've added Seth McLaughlin at the center position. You've got Carson Hinsman, who was a starter for you last year. You only need 2 of those 4 guys to fill those 2 spots there at center and right guard. So I think they're probably feeling pretty good, but you always keep your options open. Another spot, Tony, this was one where there's complete turnover among the starters for the most part. I'm going to put a little asterisk there. Tommy Eichenberg, Steele Chambers, the 2 starting linebackers last year, both left. You do have Cody Simon back. Cody Simon with some extensive starting experience. He feels like he's one of the guys. But then how is the rest of the lineup going to shake out? There's so much talent there. You got CJ Hicks, you got Gabe Powers, you got Sonny Styles. You have 2 linebacker positions, unless you have 3, which they'll sometimes have 3. It just feels like coming away from that scrimmage, or, well, not quite a scrimmage, coming away from the practice, let's say last Saturday with some extended 7-on-7 and 11-on-11. I think I'm walking away from that again feeling like, boy, it feels like the answers at linebacker are there, and it's just a matter of which ones they want to choose.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think they need to choose just 2. I think one thing that we did not see from Saturday is enough of CJ Hicks as a linebacker stopping the run. He stood out because of his blitzing, which has never been an issue. It's the other stuff that has been the bigger question mark with CJ Hicks. So until we see that for sure, I think there'll still be questions. But it is pretty amazing that you do lose 2 3-year starters, and you're potentially replacing them with Cody Simon's 15 career starts, Sonny Styles 12 career starts, and somebody with the ability of CJ Hicks, and let's not sell Gabe Powers short either, or Arvell Reese. So I think there's some inexperience, but also I would never call Sonny Styles inexperienced. I would never call Cody Simon inexperienced. He's been Ohio State starting middle linebacker before, and everybody's pretty confident in him. But I still think there are questions about that will linebacker because we need to see it from CJ Hicks. It's a new position for Sonny Styles. So there's plenty of reason for excitement, but I also think there's some reason for, hey, let's just, we'll see. And we don't know for sure what's going to happen. There will be some outstanding plays. I guarantee that. We know that will happen. But what about the mundane, the everyday play? What will that look like?
Yeah, it feels like when we hear coaches talk about what do they need to improve or what does this guy need to do better, so often you hear the word consistency, and it's like, that's boring. Say something more exciting than that. But that's, what does the wide receiver need to do better? Well, he needs to block better. What does the tight end need to do better? He needs to block better. What does a linebacker need to do? He needs to be more consistent. It's like, well, these are all very boring answers, and yet it does feel like that determines a lot of how things go on the field for your team in the fall. So we will continue to follow all of these storylines as well as all of the other ones. A lot of intriguing stories elsewhere on the team in terms of second team guys and where things are, young guys on the rise. Jeremiah Smith. There, I said his name. Now it's officially a podcast. I said Jeremiah Smith's name. But lots of intriguing storylines to follow all spring long with us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. A lot of recruiting stuff happening as well. 4 recruits committing over the last weekend. More visits coming up. It should be a busy weekend for the spring game. Much more. You're going to want to follow all of it with us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, Kevin, and I covering the team. Mark on recruiting. Our whole team of X's and O's gurus making you a smarter football fan. All at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.